Okay, it is now 4:30 and I will open the meeting of the Enfield Heritage Commission, the June 23rd meeting. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the May 26th minutes. And thank you again, Linda.
Who's taking minutes today?
I can do them, Linda.
Okay.
I'm used to it. Because you're leaving for Norway, right?
Right.
It's going to be a mass
That's
exodus.
as good an excuse as I can think of.
When are you leaving?
Well, don't tell Meredith, but it's the 4th of July.
Okay.
Oh my God. So,
In July. So you might want to think about it before the July meeting at all.
What's that? It's really hard to understand with masks on, and I know we have to do that, but
It appears that there are at least 3 that will not be present for July meeting.
right.
You might want to think about that.
Well, why don't we wait? The two I hear of are Linda and Madeline, correct?
and
Suzanne.
Oh, and Suzanne won't be here. Okay, well, I guess, yes, we will have to think about canceling. I'll talk to Elisa about that.
Where's Seeley?
I don't know. I didn't hear from her.
Maybe when I wait. It's only 4:30.
so Meredith,
Yes,
I have your notes on the meeting,
right.
but except for one, I couldn't figure out where you wanted them.
Well, just a small correction. It was not the Upper Valley Land Trust annual meeting. It was just a meeting that they were having at the pavilion. And it was last night. I happened to drive by there when they were having their meeting.
And I had that in here?
Yes, it said Upper Valley Land Trust annual meeting. I just strike annual.
You guys want me to wear the mask?
Oh.
I think they took it off.
Well, she can't hear. If you're speaking, you need to take it off because she can't hear otherwise. Okay, and the second paragraph, which one did that go under?
I don't have that in front of me. What was it?
Members were asked to look at RSA's governing land use boards and how
Okay.
they relate to heritage.
That was a question more than anything, Linda. My understanding was that I asked everyone to check the RSAs of land use boards, but I didn't think we were going to discuss it at any length at this meeting.
Okay. Covenants on sale of town properties, that goes with sale of town-owned properties.
Right.
And then the last paragraph, Enfield has well-defined railroad history.
That was just a little note. That doesn't have to be in the minutes. It just was a note. People forget about the Union Street Fire Station because it's a fire station, but it was the Hood Dairy Milk Depot, and it's actually considered eligible for the National Historic Register. And there aren't many of these buildings left. I remember there was a huge to-do in Lebanon a few years ago because the salt shed, or the sand and salt shed, was still intact, and there was a group that wanted to save it. So I just put that. You don't have to put it in. No, it was just information for the commission. You don't have to include that in the minutes. Just have that on the radar.
Put it under sale of town-owned buildings.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
All right. I'll make those corrections and send them out to everyone.
Great.
Are there any other corrections?
Hearing none, can I have a vote to approve the minutes with the corrections?
are we allowed to do that if they haven't been corrected yet, or can we vote, can we move to have them as
Yes.
corrected?
Yes, you can,
Amended.
Okay.
yes, amended minutes.
I move to approve the May 26th minutes as amended.
Now second,
All in favor?
Fine.
Aye.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda, after a considerable amount of frustration with the form, the Moose Plate grant for the townhouse was submitted yesterday afternoon. Ed and I worked back and forth on it. I kept having glitches and being able to save all the information that I had spent hours typing in. But the long and the short of it is that we are applying to build new front steps out of granite blocks and a railing on either side. That railing that's there now is ridiculous. Liam estimates that to be around $12,000. That's a ballpark estimate. And the other major work that needs to be done is the drainage around the building. That is a follow-up from the Don Woods engineering. He was the hydrologist that we got a grant to have the area, I guess you'd call it, surveyed for water infiltration. And this is the sort of work he recommended. The water is coming down that hillside from many different points. And of course, it winds up in the brook eventually, but a lot of it goes under the building. So Liam has 18,000 in the grant for just the drainage work. Well, Ed and I went back and forth. And should we just go for the steps? And I convinced him that Amy Dixon, the point person for Moose Plate grants at New Hampshire Historic Resources, is very sympathetic, particularly toward this building. And I said, why don't I call Amy and get her take? Because the first thing, I guess Ed wanted to do just the drainage and forget the steps. Liam says the steps, of course, are not code in any way, shape, or form, and using the building for public use is a no-no because of the way the steps are, steps and railing. So anyhow, I had an exchange with Amy, and she urged us to go ahead and apply. Ed was concerned that we would be over the 20,000 limit for the grant, and that they could deny it on that. And Amy said no. And then he started thinking of ways that we could make it work. And I mentioned the $2,000 that we had in the trust fund. And back and forth we went. And finally we made the decision to go ahead and apply for the whole enchilada. And Amy seconded that. She said, we can always find ways. And I don't know what her mysterious ways are, but anyhow, the grant has been submitted. So that's a major relief, at least for me. I started thinking about this grant when I was in the hospital, and I thought, oh my God, the letter of intent has to be in this Friday. And I emailed Amy from DHMC and said, Amy, I'm afraid we won't be able to apply for that Moose Plate grant because I'm in the hospital and I can't get a letter of intent out to you. No problem, it's not due till the following week. So anyhow, we got the letter of intent in May, and now the grant has been submitted and we wait to hear. I think September is when they announce the results of the grant. Suzanne, will you make sure that your sister knows about this? Oh, and the other thing.
How much you need if you run short.
Well, I want her to know that her $2,000 may very well be used to meet this, the terms of the grant. But Amy suggested that we have some kind of fundraising effort, at least to kick it off during the Old Home Days celebration in September. And I think that's a good idea and probably a good time to, since the building will be open for tours, and hopefully this other event we talked about, I think it would be a good time to kick off some kind of fundraising, and writing to Mrs. Byrne is not beyond the realm of possibility. She likes matches, as you know. We've already received $125,000 from her for Lakeside Park, but this is not Lakeside Park. This is another effort. And it's interesting that in the grant application, they wanted to know about the town's capabilities. They wanted examples or an example of managing grants. So in a previous effort, so I used Lakeside Park and mentioned the 3 large over $100,000 grants that we have successfully managed for that effort, and I hope that will push us forward in the queue. So anyhow, I'd like to have some kind of fundraising kickoff during Old Home Days. I think it's an ideal time, so please be thinking about that. Any questions or comments?
Comments. I'll hope it doesn't matter if I take off my mask. So I, as I told you, I was writing for the upcoming months of the little Know Your Town. I thought it would make sense to discuss the, the certified local government and these 3 buildings. So I'm doing a little thing on the buildings. This month coming up will be the Union Church, and then August will be the townhouse, because I'm doing them in chronological order. And of course, one of the big things is the earnest workers circle and their involvement, but mostly in Union Church, but also using the townhouse. What about for a fundraising thing? Could we do something like jam and jelly competition, or a quilt competition, or something that people have to pay maybe a little bit to join? Maybe they pay a little bit to vote, or something to sort of keep that, because the earnest workers, did do, one of their initiatives was an annual sort of craft and
Yeah,
fair. Is that something we might be able
I
to?
think that's a great idea, Madeline. And I believe that the extension service, or whatever you call it, used to give classes there at the townhouse. Those big tables were used for various activities, whatever they did there. Yeah, the earnest workers were certainly an active group. They put that little addition on the back of the schoolhouse with the kitchen upstairs when they put on their suppers. Couldn't have been too convenient hiking food up and down the stairs, but they were a hardy lot, I guess. That's an excellent idea, Madeline, and I'll work on that. Maybe even pies, a pie contest, or
Something that we can sort of get money from, it, either that, as I say, people pay to join, people pay to vote. I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
We were just talking about the Union Church used to have an annual very nice kind of antique sale, etc. And they no longer seem to be doing that. And I wondered if, I have antiques to donate. Other people have nice things.
How about a silent auction like they did at the Ukraine Day?
yeah, they raised quite a bit of money, for, $8,000 or $9,000, I believe.
8,600.
Well, a silent auction
A
could
raffle?
also include, conclude everything, actually. It will take someone to go around and and collect the stuff. Maybe I could, no, Dolores is chairman of Old Home Days. She's not going to do it. Dolores and Jean Patton worked hard on that Day for Ukraine. I was on the committee until I got sick.
What date in September is Old Home Days?
The 24th, I think it's Saturday. Well, it's that weekend. Let's see, where's my calendar? Buried as usual.
24.
Yeah, I think it's Saturday, the 24th. Have you talked to
But the day we'll have the buildings open is the 24th.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, it's
Teacher,
Friday, the
24th
23rd, 24th, and 25th.
are the official days.
So if we did one of these things, you know, the pie or whatever it is, and we do it at the townhouse? Is that also a way to get people down there to look at it?
I would think so, yes. Feed them and they will come.
Maybe we should just sell pie by the slice.
Well, you know, years ago when I lived in Wilmot, we used to do that for the library and it was very successful. It's amazing what people will pay for pies. I couldn't believe that somebody put down $25 for lemon meringue pie at the Shaker Museum 4th of July pie sale.
Yeah, that's another thing though, because pies, that's kind of the shaker thing.
We do, we have a pie sale at 4th of July and also in October.
So are we infringing on you if we do another pie sale, or should we do something else?
I'd say, but last year, we sold out of pies in 48 minutes. We
Yeah, they go like hotcakes.
sold a
but-
lot of pies, so I wouldn't think it would be infringing on us. There's great demand for pies and not many bakers.
What about bread? Everybody was making bread during
That would be a
that. Could King Arthur King Arthur is sponsored or something?
Panera, they sent boxes of bread over to Ukraine.
Really?
We went home with 3 of them.
Oh, wow.
They just sent someone in a, large car over, which they unloaded boxes.
Wow.
Well, actually, we could do baked goods. It could be breads, cookies, muffins, pies. I don't see that.
very
that-
well.
I don't think pies, selling pies or slices of pie. Of course, if you sell slices, then you have to have plates and something to eat it with, and that could be present a nuisance. I don't think it would interfere. The lionesses sell pies as well. So nobody has a,
I don't know, I like, as I said, I kind of like the idea of the competition or something to sort of get people a little bit riled up about it, some little.
Yeah.
twist on just another bake sale, to make people sort of be at the top of their games
The bake sale raised 2,600.
at the Ukraine. What is the other food at the Old Home Days?
well, ice cream. I don't know. I think they'll have a food truck or more. I'm not sure what the arrangement is. It's still pretty much in flux, but the picnic, a townwide picnic at Lakeside Park on Saturday, Lori Bliss usually is there with sandwiches. And I think they've asked Baited Hook too. I'm not sure.
So I'm thinking of something that would get, that's why I thought of the quilts, or something that would also get people beyond Enfield, we're.
Yes, yes.
Pretty
Yeah,
much-
like the New London area, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. As I say, if it's a quilt competition or something, then people from all over might want to join, and then they want to come see their cousin's quilt or whatever to sort of expand.
And so,
Isn't there-
popular, most popular prize.
Yeah,
Like
something,
someone's farm.
oh, they do?
Have a big boat show.
In years past,
And-
as far as
Yeah.
quilts go, they've had, the Methodist Church has had a quilt exhibit at Old Home Days. They just drape the quilts over the pews. I don't know whether they're gonna do that or not. Well, be thinking about this. September will be on our doorstep before we know it, and I'll try to flesh things out. As I'm working in the garden, I'll do some thinking. Any more comments on the townhouse? And
I just want to know why it's cost $12,000 for steps.
well, I asked the same thing, Celie. They're not wooden steps. The big expense is the granite blocks. They want to use the granite blocks. There's one there now, I think. And I asked Amy Dixon if we could use, reuse, recycle the granite blocks that are along the edge of the creek. And she felt that they wouldn't meet the rise and run for the requirements. They were old foundation blocks and not designed for steps. So Liam looked into the cost of these steps, granite that would be used for steps. And I guess that's how he came up with the figure.
A lot of
I'm
money.
hoping he's really high.
I got, there's a guy, who lives up near, is he in Lyme or beyond Lyme? He sometimes advertises in the Upper Valley listserv. His name is Michael. I think he's a physician. Anyway, he now treats substance abuse. Anyway, for years he has purchased blocks of granite from all over. And he has this, and his farm has tons of granite blocks. And I bought some from him to use as stairs for my cottage. And he has every shape and size. And I don't know how they compare to, going and getting new blocks. I don't know if that's an issue, but that might be something to consider because you might have a better chance of getting something that's going to meet code for size than just, dragging them out of. And they're, many of them were used for steps, so they're going to be, once used for a foundation might be a different size. The problem with that is that then it makes, if they're not cut new for us, it's more work for whoever sets them.
Well, exactly. And that may be the problem we run into. I'm going to leave this one in Liam's lap because he knows that we're going to, be watching the pennies. And if there's a way to get around it, we will. Liam and Ed and myself talked about wood steps versus granite. And we all agreed that the granite would look the best, be more in keeping with the building, and not have a great set of wooden stairs that also have to be maintained. The nice thing about granite is that it doesn't need painting and it doesn't rot.
And it's not slippery.
Okay, any more comments? Well, let's move on to Lakeside Park. I'm going to combine Lakeside Park with the Enfield Shaker Village Scenic Byway. First, Shirley, you're on the Lakeside Park Committee. The trails and plantings, we're moving ahead, as I understand it. Mike Burns has been there. You've seen the bobcat that's down there, and he's taken out the old railroad tie wall and what I think was the beginning of the dock for the old motel. But right now the hang up is waiting for Carroll Concrete to come in with their special, whatever it is, mix of cement that he's going to pour for the wall. So it's hurry up and wait.
And he thought the wall was gonna be done good, but soon. So.
Yeah. I think it's the concrete, Shirley, that's the hang up right now.
Right, because it is a special mix.
Yeah, yeah, it must have something to do with the lake and the freezing. The bicycle racks are anticipated in July, the 2 bicycle racks. The people riding bikes through the pavilion continues to be a problem, and I don't know how to stop that. It's not everybody, it's just a rude few.
Too bad that someday we can't get railings there, like, you know, they're
Well, yeah, I agree, Shirley. I think that would help.
nice.
What about just planters?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Madeline.
It's a good idea, except somebody has to take care of them.
You can walk by them, but you can't ride your bike on them.
Right, that's a good idea. And then it's less expensive.
Right.
Well, the columns have been blocked in so that the railings can be attached when and if we have the money to buy the railings. It was $5,000 that we had to take out of the budget at the time, and of course it'd probably be 10,000 now with the way building supplies are running. But it troubles me that people are so inconsiderate that they think that building is to ride a bike through. And there's no accounting for bad manners. I don't know.
Have you ever walked on the rail trail and dodged bikes?
Yes.
High-speed bicycle riders who give you no warning. I'm surprised that it's not been a fatal accident.
Especially when they pack up. That's what really bugs me. Poor Ken Warren gets under the gun at the various meetings. He represents the Friends of the Northern Rail Trail, and Ken is a responsible bike rider. I think a lot of the people that are going through the pavilion are kids. And I've been known to ask them politely not to do it when I've been down there, but hope springs eternal. Other than that, I haven't heard the complaining about trash issues like we have in previous years. People are getting used to slowly the idea of pack it in, pack it out, as they have in most state and national parks. So hopefully that will be a thing of the past. Patty Freed has worked so hard to do the, head up the plantings. She got Henry Holmeyer to come. And the neat thing about Henry is that his wife, Cindy Heath, is also a master gardener, and she was the Parks and Recreation Director in Lebanon for 17 years. So I'm going to have a conversation with Cindy. I know her through Ava because she's a active Ava member. I'm going to ask her how they controlled problematic things like people riding bikes through the park in Lebanon. Of course, their bandstand, or whatever you call it, the pavilion, is raised up so you can't ride a bike through it. But I'm also concerned about just riding bikes within the park itself. I see no point in it. It's a park. They have the whole rail trail to ride bikes on. Why they have to ride bikes through the park itself, I don't understand. I ride a bicycle on occasion, but it wouldn't occur to me to ride on these trails that they're going to be putting in. We've blocked them out, but that's just my opinion. Any comments?
Make signage. What else can you do?
Yeah, well, Ken did put up
Bike
some
trails,
nice.
can't you put a baffle at the beginning of it so that you can walk around it, but you can't go with a bike?
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of people that are very vocal about being able to ride their bikes through the park. I guess they don't want to get off the bike. It may change once we get the bike racks in there. There's going to be one at the entrance to the park, and the other one where the entrance comes off the rail trail. There'll be another bike rack. So people will be able to park their bikes and then, you know, walk to a picnic table or whatever. Okay, to piggyback on that, we heard 2 days ago that Enfield has been accepted as the only nominee for a very large Federal Highway Administration grant for scenic byways. So if we were to get it, it would be huge. It's in excess of $500,000. And the grant would be used for improving the sidewalks along Main Street, where they're really in terrible shape, along near Lakeside Park. And I think there may be something in there for parking as well. So it is past the state level, our grant, and it's now gone to Washington. So we can hope, at least we passed that big hurdle of the state selecting which grant or grants they want to send to Washington. And now I think it's gone to Washington. Yeah, I know it has, because we got a notice from whoever it is, grants.gov. So that's good news.
So it's we could get a sidewalk going from like the bridge all the way to Jake.
Well, there is a sidewalk there, you know, near where Donnie Roberts' house is and along in there, but it's in terrible shape. And I think it was in the budget a year or two ago to repair it, and they pushed it back. And it's been pushed back again. We knew that this grant might be a possibility. So they decided to hold off on repairing and rebuilding the sidewalk. It's a state road. The town had asked to add some, I think it was parallel parking, some kind of parking option. And the state didn't like that. So, you know, if the state wants to move cars through, they're not interested in parking particularly. So back and forth. But with this grant, if we were to get the grant, I think that would certainly help the parking issue as well.
Fair enough. Has any thought been given to providing at some point in the near future sidewalks in Enfield Center?
The sidewalks in Enfield Center, yes.
I mean, you know, you're proposing the schoolhouse, the townhouse, the church, but you walk along between the church and the other two buildings and vice versa. 14A is not safe.
Well, yes. The problem for the scenic byway grant, Marjorie, is that our extension has not yet been approved. Lakeside Park falls within the catchment area for the existing byway, the existing scenic byway. So that's why we were eligible for this. The extension is held up in Concord for some unknown reason.
So that's, I understand that aspect of it completely, but I put it out there on the table so that we can keep it in the back of our minds that we need to begin the process of getting sidewalks into Enfield Center.
There were sidewalks 100 years ago, I understand.
There were complete sidewalks there, and if you dig down deep enough on the church and museum side of the roadway,
Mhm.
find the sidewalks are beneath the roadbed. The roadbed has been built up,
Yeah.
over time, and down below that, the sidewalks are there. And it's very well documented, you know, historical record and public record that the sidewalks are there. Now, I'm looking ahead, saying, let's keep that in mind when we talk about Enfield Center. Because in, you know, State Road, it's not going to be easy to the sidewalks down through there. But let's start the think process now, so that when something comes forth in the future, we might have a clear understanding of what we'd like to see.
Meredith, question?
Yes,
The 500,000, when it comes through, could that also be used for signage?
I'm not sure, Linda. It's a good question. There
I'm
was,
thinking of, rail trail parking signage.
yes. We got an email from Lindy Heim, who is the co-president of the Friends of the Northern Rail Trail. This was about a month ago. And she said the town website is really not helpful at all. It says, there are parking signs, but people coming from another town don't have a clue where these alternative parking areas are, like Depot Street and the municipal parking lot. So that's something that certainly needs to be improved. But that's not my job. You don't want me messing with the website for sure. The signage is, you can put up signs and put up signs, but people have to read them and people have to pay attention to them. And we are a little hesitant to have it become, like a Burma shave exhibit with multiple signs. It's an education process. The scenic byway has finally been funded. It hasn't out of Washington. It hasn't had any funds for several years. The Concord situation, we did a lot of work 2 years ago with Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning, and extended the byway. It goes into Lebanon. It goes down Bank Street and goes around Coburn Park. And it's still sitting in Concord because when Sununu became governor, he disbanded the committee that says yay or nay to extensions to byways. And to my knowledge, I keep asking, it hasn't been, he or Governor's Council has not reinstituted a new committee, because it's so important that we get this, our application approved. It would certainly help. And interestingly, Enfield Center, it goes all the way to the Enfield Center, Enfield town line to Grafton. So once the thing is approved, who knows, there could be another grant. We might get those sidewalks in Enfield Center on at another go round. I don't know. But it's one of the things I've got to work on is pressuring. I'll talk to Alex Valens. He's my contact person at Upper Valley Regional Planning. And he's been working with us on this, and see if he's tried, I've tried. Joe Kenny has done absolutely nothing. So if anybody has any ideas on how we can push this byway extension through, let me know. It's really important for Enfield. It's one of the biggest tourism boosters we can have. When Scott Osgood was the planner in Enfield, he mentioned that when they put in the Currier Knives, it's called the Currier Knives Scenic Byway in Henniker, the merchants took a dim view, and now the merchants are huge supporters. It brought people to town. Rob Taylor's dad, Steve Taylor, was influential in getting the Maxfield Parish Scenic Byway in Plainfield. So this can bring us nothing but good. Any questions on the scenic byway, which has been asleep for a while? No questions? I have the master plan on the agenda, just simply public education. How do we educate the public about historic preservation, which tends to get a very bad name? And we need to be thinking about that all the time. How do we let people know that we're not going to tell them what color to paint their house?
Yeah, I was also amazed when when I wrote the thing for the last week, just the statistics on how much money it brings, how much money it brings in
Mhm.
as well. And the kind of tourism that it brings in is higher spending tourism. Tourism is
Yes.
New Hampshire's second biggest business. I don't know what the biggest business is, but anyway, tourism is New Hampshire's second biggest source of income.
Maybe it's alcohol.
Oh, it might be.
I don't think it is.
No, but I
Crossed my mind.
Yeah, no, I keep seeing it's the second, and then I couldn't find anything about what the first was. Yeah, so it's not something that it's a drag on finances. It's something that has benefits proved elsewhere. We're not just making this stuff up.
Interestingly,
I
You-
want to add something about
Yes.
the master plan is very important because now's the time the Heritage Commission and some other commissions and different departments have their say, and we have to write a section about the Heritage Commission for the master plan. So that will be coming up very soon.
well,
Next
nobody's
step
contacted
in
me
master
about it.
plan.
Seeley,
Right.
nobody has contacted me about that.
You've been thinking about that, you said?
Nobody has contacted me about that.
It came up at the planning board meeting last night that as soon as this first part is done, they would start addressing some of the, conservation,
Yeah,
energy, heritage, etc.
Natural resources. So that's the second part of the master plan. So
okay.
we do have a spot, and we'll be able to maybe make this a dry run, excuse me, about writing about heritage and take examples from other towns that do not have that. You gotta paint your house this color, or, can't do
We
that.
got all the information, and I sort of, as I said, I kind of looked, if you read I talked a little bit about it in the newsletter in whatever, the most recent one. And
The last one,
yeah, and June made it very clear that
I have to read that.
yeah, read it, because that might be a way to get into it, because that's
Mhm.
already there. I already wrote that and put some of that information into it. As I say, I made it very clear. I put the RSA in about what a heritage commission is, how it fits into town government. So,
That's good.
yeah.
But we also want to put the plan in for the master plan. In addition to, the plan in the historic district. What Enfield Heritage wants to continue to do, like the 3 buildings. in,
Historic triangle.
Center.
Yeah.
We have to set those goals out in the master plan. So,
Interesting. We have 2 National Historic Register districts in Enfield. The largest one is the Village. It's one of the largest in the state of New Hampshire, 193 contributing properties. The other one is over at the Shaker Museum, which just really includes the museum campus. My long-range plan / dream is to have another National Register district in Enfield Center. And that may be something that we can get some help with Mascoma Valley Preservation eventually when Andrew isn't completely snowed under. But are there time limits on what they expect from us? In other words, it is a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 20-year? Do you know, Celie?
You were talking earlier about the Depot Street and the buildings and the
Mhm.
fire department and all that. Don't you think we ought to do something with those as historic buildings, since they are?
Well, yeah, they're all of them are eligible for National Register, a laundromat as well, which was the old freight depot. To me, it tells the story of the railroad history in Enfield, which especially the Hood Dairy Building. The depot is a treasure. I know Angus DeRocha is very interested in purchasing it, and when it becomes available, and I think he will do nice things to it. I had said to him, well, a little bit of landscaping there would help a lot. I mean, it's just one big gravel patch. They're not available. They're not going to sell them yet, but that's where the covenants that I had talked about, like they did for 18 High Street, when the town took 18 High Street for taxes and they sold it. April Whitaker was the town manager, and I urged her to put covenants on it so that when it was sold, it couldn't be torn down. Jerry Rich, who owned the house on the corner, wanted it for parking for his, pardon me, slum housing. Anyhow, she agreed. They were going to pay $6,000 to tear down the building. They had a demolition company hired. So it was a win-win. They sold the building for $11,111.11 to Donnie Roberts. And so that was money in the pocket, and they saved the $6,000 that they were going to spend. So they're already $17,000 ahead of the game. And Roberts put up a very nice house there, which is back on the tax rolls, and certainly in addition to High Street. So by adding covenants to or to a building that you're going to put up for sale, that you can do this but you can't do that, like tear it down, the town can actually be ahead of the game.
It would be lovely if that laundry was turned into a wonderful cafe, a bakery.
Well, I asked Brian about it the other day at the zoning board of adjustment, because he can't, he could, but the problem with the laundromat is the cost of the water and the sewage. And he can't, in New Hampshire, there's no way to do a gray water system. New Hampshire sort of just doesn't have them. So yes, the idea is to make that into a cafe.
But it's a terrible eyesore right now.
Sorry, what?
It's a terrible eyesore. He's not taking care of that building at all.
Yeah.
He did the back of it. He put a paint on the back. Because I look out my kitchen window, he said he painted it to keep me happy.
It would certainly bring tourists. There's nothing to bring tourists to downtown Enfield.
He said he's gonna make it into a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I heard him say he's leaving the country soon.
There's that too.
Yes, I heard that too.
Yeah, I think he wants to stay, but his family doesn't or something, so. I don't know.
Well, wouldn't it be lovely if Eva took it over and did a transformation like they did with the Greeley House and with 78 Main Street?
Well, somebody, and I think he felt that he took it over so it didn't fall into the hands of somebody. Like, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe if he doesn't want it, he can sell it to somebody who will do a good job. I don't know, people that put Muffys together or something.
It's a sweet building.
It's a very sweet building.
Okay, let's, anything else on the master plan? I will get my radar up, Seeley, and start thinking about it.
Meredith,
Yes.
an aside,
Mhm.
I think that you mentioned Andrew being very busy. Andrew is currently on 2 months of leave.
Yes, I know.
Or
He's
he
taken 2 months off.
Andrew Cushing from Mascoma Valley Preservation. And so he's like crazy trying to finish his own
He
house.
said both his houses is what he told me.
Yeah, he won't even get to the second one, but I mean, he can't. It's too much. But the one
But
he
he's going to-
listed.
He's going to be back at Preservation Alliance in the fall, which is great.
Yeah, right. And our own inside man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He wasn't sure whether he was going to be on the Moose Plate jury or not, but I know that he'd be pulling for us. Okay, is that it on master plan stuff? I'd like to move on to Old Home Days. I have spoken to Dwight Marchetti, and he says he can come up with a list. But the last Old Home Day meeting was canceled because Donnie Crate was dying, or yeah, he was in the process of dying. And so there will be a meeting this coming, well, July meeting will be,
First Wednesday.
not sure. It's always a Wednesday.
First Wednesday.
I could use some help. I'm not sure if sticking to just mill memories is going to work. So I'd like your opinion on that. Dwight says he can come up with a list of people that would like to participate. But I've got to get that list from him. Paul Currier was another person that had been mentioned. And Paul's a wonderful character.
I don't see why it has to be the mill. I mean, it seems like whoever we get is good.
Just remembering, just memories. Does anybody have a thought on what we could call this session?
Oh, and there is another person that would be good to contact, is Cheryl Girding.
Oh,
Yeah, Cheryl has a lot.
Cheryl Girding. I hope she, oh,
She knows, yeah. She knows everything. Yeah, she could.
okay. Shirley, might you have her contact information?
Oh, I do.
Could you send it to me? Email it to me?
The town of Lyme interviewed people, and then they did a little book on it. I think they got funding for it. So there's a portrait of the person, and then they told their little story.
Well, we did a little something like that
Yeah,
for the 250th.
Right.
Becky Powell, I think, headed it up. In fact, I have the little booklet. Charles Livingstone did a thing about Livingstone Lodge that's in that book. But there wasn't a public time where people could come and listen. I remember going to one in Wilmot years ago that the Historical Society put on, and it was fascinating. They were all old ladies recalling life in the town in the 40s and 50s, and it was just amazing.
So was there an interviewer, or how did it function? Were they up on a
It
stage?
wasn't, but I do think we need some kind of a moderator that pulls the questions out of people. Will tell us a little more about that, George, or whatever.
Yeah.
Dolores had suggested that John Klug might be willing to do it. But I haven't talked to John about it. It's all been, Old Home Days has been difficult between Dolores's family issues and I don't know, it's just,
What about getting people from the Historical Society?
well, Marjorie's sitting right there.
I know she is.
John would be great, Marjorie. I want to know about him going to school in the Enfield Center Schoolhouse.
He was a very young twink at that age.
He still remembers, though.
David's schoolhouse, yeah.
There's quite a few new volunteers for Old Home Days. I thought it was really great.
Yes, we've got some young blood.
And they're very interested and plan to be active.
Kristen Harrington, I talked to Kristen from time to time, and she said she might even be willing to do some volunteering, especially if it's around the townhouse. So I'll know more after the July meeting. Okay, if anybody has any thoughts, please email them to me. And yes, we're going to do some kind of a fundraising effort as well. It'll be good for future grants, if nothing else. Linda, do you have anything from Mascoma Valley Preservation?
Yes. So MVP is repairing the steeple at the Cheever Church.
Oh, wow.
It's coming in, and we're also getting quotes to restore the stained glass windows.
Wow.
Building is not being used currently, and we're trying to find a day where people can cut brush and trees behind the building. So that money will come out of our coffers to have the shingles put back on the, I want to call it a steeple, but it's on the corner, so that seems a little strange to me, but
is it being used at all? Wasn't there a Sunday school that met there or something?
nothing. The congregation didn't feel they could take on the cost of even repairing the leak in the roof. So they've joined another congregation, I think in Bristol, but somewhere nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And they would be welcome to come back once we fixed it up, but it's an older congregation, and we don't know if they want to. And we're going through the same growing pains of how do we involve people in Dorchester?
Yeah.
Because we're seen as an outside group, not someone trying to preserve their historic building, and they can use it. MVP does own it now.
Yeah.
We did have a pro bono attorney who liked the idea of helping us out to all the legal work. Also, with the Kimball Mill, there are 3 properties there. I think I told you last time that it had been sprayed for powder
post beetles.
powder post beetle.
Yeah.
So the goal for into June was to have a work day,
Mm-hmm.
and we got 3 dumpsters.
Oy.
One for metal, one for household waste, and one for construction waste. And it was a busy day.
Oh my gosh.
We filled all of them, and we don't have the buildings emptied yet, but we're much closer.
Did you do all 3 buildings?
Yes. Previously, we had 1 or 2 dumpsters there for when there was a work day and Hypertherm came to help.
Mhm.
I wasn't around for that. So we filled many, many dumpsters now.
Well,
now
that's
we
an
know
expense
from
right
Walmart.
there, I would think, a
So
big
we-
expense.
Saying, do we get a dumpster or a porta potty?
Mhm.
We have a room full of ladies, and guess which they want? Especially when it's cold. So anyway, grant applications are out and we're just taking a little breather until Andrew can, get some work done and
But you've got the guru of grants at your head, so.
I know. We keep telling him he doesn't have to do everything, because physically, he's mowing the lawn, he's doing grants, he's working on buildings.
What is the status of the Grafton Meeting House?
More windows are being made. The ones done over the winter and the columns are in storage in the barn at Kimball Mill. We're trying to figure out who is going to put on the addition that will have the elevator. We can't put on an addition as large as the one we tore down. Although that's usually considered grandfathered because it encroached on the DOT's rail trail.
Right.
They didn't allow that. And I think they even had to move the foundation a little bit to align it better for the rail trail. And we're going through the growing pains of, boy, we really need a clerk of the works. How do we interview? None of us know anything about a clerk of the works. And I told everyone they should look for a retired civil engineer or someone who would like to keep their hand in or something.
We got into that problem with Lakeside Park. We didn't have a clerk of the works, and Rob Taylor fell into the role just by default, but he wasn't really a clerk of the works.
Yeah.
And it's important when it comes to money being spent, certainly.
Right, and we keep moving the commas on how much money we've gotten, which then adds to your reporting responsibilities.
Yeah.
And the breakdowns. And so we're also looking, because our current bookkeeper, she'd never done bookkeeping. She's very clever at computers, but she has a job too, and she feels she's really at the limit of what she can do. She would like to have someone overseeing her.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do have a volunteer person right now doing that, and that's helpful. But we need a current, oh my gosh, we need a lasting solution.
Yep, sounds familiar.
It's growing pains, and we have contracted with someone to do a program every 2 months with us about best practices for certain things.
Mm-hmm. The Center for Nonprofits out of Concord has a lot of good information. You can sign up. But, Doug has been the financial person for Lakeside Park, and he spends hours. Today, he was adding up volunteer hours. And because we're trying to make the match for the Land and Water Conservation Grant, we have to have some cash, but the volunteer hours can be pretty lucrative. I mean, it's something like $25 an hour that the IRS allows.
And that's for your workers, more for a skilled person.
Yeah. Okay, Enfield Shaker Museum report. Shirley, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Is there a day you don't have a meeting or something?
Yeah.
I don't know how you keep it all together.
Museum is very busy.
Yeah.
We had the fourth graders were able to come back in person for the History Alive, and that went very well. Had a meeting there a couple nights ago, and they mentioned, fortunately, with all the classes that went through there, they hadn't heard of one child that had case after. But anyway, there are Thursday tours. Next one is the 30th, and it's about Enfield Shaker Addicts. And the virtual, there's a book discussion on the book Storm, to virtual weatherized, part of the virtual weatherized program. And the weatherized exhibit is opening, I forget exactly. Yeah, where are you? I thought it was last week, wasn't it? Yeah, I just. Anyway, and they have a Stone Mill music series, which the first one was last on the 15th, and there were over 100 people there.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great workshops throughout the summer. And on the 4th of July, we're having our tie sale. Plus, there will be music with that too. That's going to